No.
I welcome you all. Good morning and welcome everyone to this national webinar. This is our 7th national webinar. And the topic for today is faculty development needs for implementation of CBME, competency-based medical education, delivered by Dr. Thomas V. Chacko. Before we go into the topic, let me share a few thoughts regarding the CBME. Just a short background information about the today's topic. We all may be aware that competency-based medical education is gaining momentum across the globe, and competency-based medical education has emerged as a core strategy to educate and assess the next generation physicians. The MCA recently has, starting from the last academic year, MCA has introduced CBME for MBBS program in India. For effective implementation of CBME, already medical education in India is facing a lot of challenges, and after introducing the CBME, medical educators have to face a lot of other challenges. That is, medical educators must prepare themselves to encounter a number of challenges. Many of these challenges pertain to delivering the new curricula, methods of assessment, and above all, changing the culture of education so that the CBME paradigm gains acceptance. With this short background information, now coming to our today's speaker. Our speaker for today's webinar is Dr. Thomas V. Chacko, who will speak on the faculty development needs for implementation of CBME. Professor Thomas needs no introduction. He is currently the Director, PSG FAMER Regional Institute, Coimbatore, and Dean of Medical Education and Professor of Community Medicine at Believers Church Medical College, Kerala. He was awarded with an International Fellowship in Medical Education in 2002 by the University of Illinois at Chicago, and Education Leadership Fellowship at the FAMER Institute of Philadelphia. He is a global faculty and advisor for the FAMER program in Philadelphia. He has also served as Secretary General of Southeast Asian Regional Association for Medical Education for a period of 6 years. With this short introduction, I now invite Dr. Professor Thomas to deliver his talk. So welcome, sir.
Yeah. So the outline of the webinar is about the CBME curriculum. What I want to emphasize is that it is a new paradigm. We all studied under a different paradigm. And the CBME paradigm, we have no role models or a system to emulate. And so it is new for teachers, it is new for the students, and even it is new for the administration. Administration built the institution with what the MCI has told for the previous paradigm. And so they are caught off balance, and it is new for them. And so teachers need new competencies for the new paradigm. There is need for capacity building, for instructional design, formative assessment, teacher as facilitator and mentor of the student learning, teacher as the course and program evaluator, teacher as the researcher to solve the problems and to improve quality. Next, please. So faculty development is the key to implement CBME. That has been recognized by the Medical Council of India, and that's how we have all the faculty development programs launched through the regional and nodal centers. So this presentation, I will tell about the various faculty development needs for the new competency CBME paradigm, and the different levels of faculty needs. That will explain what the MCI has recommended for faculty development. Next, please. So this article of mine I had published in 2014, and based on this, I will be using the framework in this to tell about what are the competencies and the challenges that are needed and the way forward. Next, please. So the first part is identifying the elements of competencies then learning for mastery, assessment of competence. Next, please. And preparation of teachers, students, and the institution. So these elements we will be talking about one by one during the presentation. Next, please. So we are all familiar with the document by Medical Council of India, and it is a good document for us to teachers to work something on. So it adds clarity to the teachers. But the challenges are the changes that are brought in are challenging. Next, please. So there are changes in the curriculum. Next, please. Curricular changes are the challenge. Is a challenge. The curriculum that is there is a new curriculum, and so it is a challenge. Next, please. The teacher. It is new to the teacher. So the changes that are there, that are required of the teacher, is challenging for the teacher. Next, please. And for the students. So students are so far used to passive spoon feeding. And so now suddenly there is a new paradigm. And so it is new for the students. And because of all this, the teacher role is critical for implementing the curriculum as well as the preparing the students. Next, please. Yeah, the teacher is the focus. So the faculty development of the teacher is important. Next, please. So the challenges in implementing the CBME are the curricular shift, which I mentioned, identification of competencies. It has already been done by the MCI. So that task has been done. Benchmarking of competencies to some extent. It has been done. The MCI document identifies what level needs to be reached for each of the competency outcomes, knows how, shows how, and things like that. So that has been done. Assessment of competency is new to most of the faculty, and using of methods to assess the attainment of competency is an important faculty development need that is required to be addressed. And then another aspect which has received very less emphasis is on program evaluation. Overall assessment of the program and the processes that we are involved in as teacher, the faculty need to be well versed in program evaluation. Otherwise, we will not know whether we are moving in the right direction and whether the new paradigm is producing the outcomes that was planned under the Medical Council of India, the CBMA curriculum. Next, please. So the challenges are curricular challenges, student learning methods are new, and it is new for the students, and they are unique for CBME is learning for mastery. And MCI has approached the middle path where we are transitioning from the traditional curriculum to competency-based curriculum. And so we can say our new curriculum is competency-driven. So the competencies are listed, and then it is not purely competency-based for where everything is mastered, but for specific certain competencies, we have to focus what is needed to be provided the knowledge base and the attitude and the communication. And for specific tasks that the graduate has to perform, they have to be identified, and the teachers have to facilitate the acquisition of the learning by the learner to the mastery level. Next, please. Yeah, so we are transitioning from information or informative curriculum to transformative curriculum. And so we are all used to the teacher-driven, teacher-centered paradigm. Curricular reforms are meant for us to take this transition from this teacher-centered, information-focused curriculum to competency-based curriculum. Next, please. So we are moving into a new paradigm, which is student-centered. It is in the new paradigm, we have to make the objectives clear to the students, and then the onus on reaching those levels is supposed to be on the students, and the students will have to plan. Of course, teachers have to create the learning experiences so that we can help the students attain the competency level that is predetermined in the new curriculum. Next, please. And so this focus in outcomes in India, we have the outcomes in India as the Indian medical graduate. But before MCA came up with this idea, the outcomes were identified. For example, in Canada, the CanMEDS outcomes. Next, please. And then the MBBS outcomes have been well defined in the MCI document, the Indian Medical Graduate, or the IMG. We want our graduates to be holistic clinicians, leaders of healthcare teams, communicators with patients, family, colleagues, community. And we want them to be lifelong learners. So suddenly they will not become lifelong learners. The faculty need to be developed. They themselves need to be familiar with the new approaches where the students become lifelong learners. So the onus on the curriculum, designing the learning experience so that the students become lifelong learners, need to be started right here in the basic MBBS program itself. Of course, we are familiar with professionalism, commitment to excellence, ethics, responsiveness and accountable to patient, community, and the profession. So this is a very good thing that has been identified and is very clearly documented in the MCI curriculum. And this should be the guide for us faculty, because otherwise the teachers are all engaged in the busy activities, but we lose track about what is the ultimate product that we are producing. So whatever activity we are planning and helping the students to learn must be dictated by the ultimate outcome, the Indian medical graduate that we are producing. Next, please. So the clinician, leader of the health team, communicate. This is all there, well documented in our curriculum document. Next, please. So the learning methods are different. And so for the students, we need to orient the students. And that's why MCI has started the foundation course. So before the CBME curriculum students join, after they join, a 2-month foundation course was originally planned, but now it has been reduced to only 1 month. The idea is the students should be exposed to the new methods. The students so far were educated in the information mode type in the schooling, and suddenly we expect them to adopt to the competency-based curriculum. And so foundation for that needs to be built. And so that's why there are sessions on self-directed learning, professionalism, ethics, and all those things. So student learning methods, it is totally new for them, and for us to be the facilitators of their learning in the new paradigm, we teachers ourselves need to be undergoing programs. The faculty development of the teachers becomes important. Next, please. we have to have a big picture about the pedagogy that we are used to. And in the competency-based paradigm, we are taking the students from um, a teacher-driven to a learner-determined paradigm. But at the MBBS level, the focus of the shift is from teacher-driven to learner-centered and self-directed learning, with teacher as the facilitator of the student learning. So we call it as single loop experiential learning. So the teachers are supposed to design a curriculum which takes them through a learning experience. Then after the experience, they will reflect, and then they link it to the future role as a healthcare professional. Later on, after they qualify, the learning shifts to heutagogy, which is learning to learn, and it becomes learner determined. So the UG and PG teaching, they are different paradigms. At the PG level, it is learner determined. The teachers and peers of the learner are professional co-mentors, and they engage in double loop learning, which is reflection on and in practice. So, but that reflective practitioner habit, we must initiate at the UG level. And so that is why many of the new things that are included in the CBME curriculum are directed towards initiating the habit of being a reflective practitioner. That is reflection, and then reflection on action, and all those things are initiated. And the logbook is also designed in such a way that we encourage the student to reflect on the learning from the learning experience that they have undergone. And so that is carried on and carried forward, with focus on methods of andragogy, that is adult learning. Next, please. Yeah, next, please. So this is just to highlight that what we are currently doing is teacher-centered. And the teacher decides what are the learning objectives, what are the course content, what are the methods of students will use, the learning resources that the students will have, the sequence and pace of the learning. So from this paradigm, we teachers need to shift to the student-centered paradigm. Next, please. Next, yeah. In the students-centered paradigm, our role is to guide the student and help the student to decide the learning objectives, the course contents, the prioritization, the method to use and achieve the objectives. All options are made known to the student, and then the expected target competencies are also made known to the student, and the student has to plan and use the learning resources, and the pace of the learning also is left to the students. But since we are having a hybrid curriculum, it's not entirely all these student-centered. Within the phase of the MBBS program, the phase-wise outcomes need to be achieved. But we need to be cognizant of the fact that we need to provide enough learning opportunities and time for the students to practice and improve. And that's why they call it as test, that is formative assessment, followed by remedial measures and another chance for the student. So we have to, whenever we faculty are conducting tests, we have to remember that the tests are for learning. They are not for pass-fail decisions. And so we have to remember as faculty, our mindset also has to change, and we have to move to student-centered learning. We have to remember that CBME, although hybrid, is more on the student-centered approach, because those competencies that they are expected to attain have been identified. That's why the curriculum document says competency, outcome competency. So what is the outcome that we expect the student to reach by a specific milestone or a phase? Next, please. So we have to move from the mindset of the teacher as sage on stage to the guide by the side. So we have to play that supporting role. Next, please. Next, please. So here is what is important for the student. The students must take more personal responsibility for learning. And instead of passive listening and learning from teaching, they have to take responsibility. So new tools that will encourage the students to take these responsibilities need to be inculcated amongst the teachers. So things like learning contract, curriculum planning by the students, so that they are clear about what are the expected outcomes, and then they plan their learning, and they also are aware of the learning opportunities, and they can keep pace and study and reinforce. Adopting self-directed learning methods is what is emphasized, because the curriculum is vast, and teachers, they always feel that they have to teach, but large portions, the knowledge base especially, the students can learn by themselves. And so the teachers and the students must be aware that self-directed learning methods are important, and the teachers themselves must know the process of self-directed learning. Capacity of the faculty needs to be built about the modalities in which self-directed learning takes place, and they need to be facilitated, and we need to help the students in that. And linked to this is the role of the teacher, where the teacher has to supplement and check whether the learning that the students have undergone through self-directed learning, whether they are moving in the right direction. We have to provide them feedback, and we have to be mentors for them, so that they will be able to fulfill their roles and reach the knows and knows how level of the competencies. The next important role of the student, the onus, you remember the onus is on the student to demonstrate and document that they have attained a certain level of competency. And so whatever formative assessment that they undergo, it needs to be documented, and that has to go into the portfolio. So the portfolio is the document that shows evidence that the students are progressing. And so that is why it is important that the students also must be familiar with that. So next, please. So the other challenge of implementing CBME is unique to CBME itself, that is learning for mastery. And of course, it is a hybrid curriculum that we are following. Any change needs to be evolutionary, not revolutionary, because we don't have the infrastructure for switching over suddenly to a revolutionary mode. And so it is to our benefit as faculty that we are learning the ropes of the new paradigm before we finally shift into a totally pure CBME program. But we need to be aware that ours is a hybrid competency driven one with fixed timings. The MBBS course remains the same total duration. And so whatever as the role as teachers is to manage the time and the resources and the learning opportunities for the students to reach the identified level And that is where CISP program has been introduced by Medical Council of India, so that the curriculum committee members look at the document and try to convert it into learning experiences that are locally feasible and within the time frame that is possible. Next, please. So the new competency-based paradigm, we have to remember that we are carrying out the training of the students in a particular competency. Then we need to assess and then check whether the standard that is benchmarked for them to be attained during a particular phase or end of course or at the end of unit have been achieved or not. And so periodically we need to conduct tests, and then if they don't reach the target standard, then they have to be given time, remedial learning for practice, and then again tested till the standard is achieved. This way, the competency model is good because for the identified competencies, the focused competencies, we are ensuring that students reach that stage, not just merely by passage of time. Next, please. Yes, so the key steps in the competency development framework starts with the healthcare needs of the society. And this is in contrast to what we have been used to, where the vice pen decided the curriculum and then we organize the course contents and things like that. Next, please. So the key elements we have seen: ensuring learning for mastery, and we have already seen why they need the type of training with feedback and assessment so that we produce the job-ready graduate. The basic reasons why we shifted to CBME curriculum was our MBBS graduates were not job-ready. And so the new curriculum, CBME curriculum, has to ensure that, and this has to be kept in mind in our teachers and in faculty development programs when we are conducting faculty development programs, that we are familiar with this framework and paradigm, the whole purpose of all the activities that are being carried out. And when we are planning the learning experiences as curriculum planners, we have to keep this in mind. Next, please. Yes. So we have to shift. It's a hybrid where most of the curriculum, if you notice, is still knows how. And then we have to help them towards certain competencies that have been identified that are needed at the UG level. Next, please. So these competencies will develop through deliberate practice, opportunity for practice again and again. Next, please. So there are milestones. MS3 means the year 3 and year 4, followed by PG year 1, PG year through, and finally the march towards mastery or the expert and things like that. So this march towards expertise and mastery, we have to find out, we have to be conscious of when we are training our students. Next, please. So this is to show that at the MBBS level, we want them to reach the level of competence. And then at the PG level, they will become proficient, and then later after professional qualification, we want the learning to continue amongst the professionals to reach the level of expertise. So deliberate practice is important, and the process of that deliberate practice is you go through a learning experience, reflect on what was done well, reflect on what needs to be learned more, and then put deliberately, next time we get a chance, we have to correct ourselves and improve our practice. That's the fundamental thing that is needed for gaining in competence. Next, please. So we are moving into a new role of teacher, from sage on stage to guide on the side. And our new role is facilitator of student learning. Your taking a class is not enough. You have to check whether the student has learned. So our role is to facilitate learning. And for the student, knowledge and information is available from so many resources, the books, the internet, the YouTube. And so our role as a new role as a teacher is to role as a facilitator. Teacher as a curriculum planner, defining the competencies, planning learning experiences, sequencing them for deliberate practice. So all these require faculty development. Next, please. So teacher as a manager. So our new role, see, we have been only instructors. Now a new role of teacher as manager of instructional resources. So SimLab and all kinds of instructional resources, training modules, online resources, all those things, a new role for the teacher. And for the new roles, we need to have faculty development. And performance assessor for the learning, which I have already told. And so it's a new. And evaluator of effectiveness of the program. This is the program evaluation, which many of us teachers are not familiar. It's a new skill and competency, which is very critical, because we are launching a new CBME program, and each of the modules that we implement, each of the systems that we deliver and the students learn, whether they have learned and attained, we need to do a program evaluation that will assess the processes that have been followed, what methods we have used. Is it producing the effect? Is it leading to improved learning? Are the students able to understand? Are they finding the learning experience a joyful learning experience? So that we can always improve the program. So program evaluation as a faculty development skill is important. Next. So borrowing from the Hardin 12 roles of a teacher, this framework I'm using to emphasize that the new role of teacher, the competencies are beyond us being a lecturer and a practical teacher. So information provider is important, but we have to go beyond that. Next, please. So faculty development is needed, where the teacher has other roles. Student at a distance learning, we are all following that. We are realizing the competency that is needed for teaching the student in the distant mode. The advantage for the student is they can learn at their own pace and at their own convenient time. And then we have to create learning experiences for them, and then we encourage them to reflect on their learning, and we provide feedback for them on their learning. And we have to develop other competencies. Just to illustrate our new role as a teacher, to facilitate self-directed learning by the learner, teacher first need to diagnose the learner. We have to diagnose our student whether they are dependent totally on us, or they are somewhat interested, or are they involved, or are they reached the stage of self-directed learning. The stage 4 is self-directed learning. And so for each of these stages of self-directed learning, our role becomes different. So for the dependent student, say in the first MBBS, we have to be their coach. Next, please. And then we have to create the interest. That is why we have early clinical exposure and even during each of our classes, we have to go take them to get them interested. So faculty development is important for self-directed learning. Next, please. Next, please. As a facilitator of learning, then teaching students to design their own learning. So goal setting is important, and all this is being provided to the students during the foundation course, which these skills need to be acquired by the student as well as for that to happen by the faculty. And so faculty skills in helping the students to design their own learning is important. Next, please. So planning, assessment. So these are the skills which the students need to develop, and for them to develop, for us to mentor them, our capacity to help them do these needs to be addressed through faculty development programs. Next, please. So assessor, we are familiar. And this part is what I had already told, is about the portfolio, which becomes very important in the competency-based medical education paradigm. Next, please. So in the portfolio has two components. One is during formative assessment, after each learning experience, a field posting or an experiment or an exposure or interaction with a simulation or real patients, the students must document the learning, reflect on the learning, and we have to give them feedback on their performance, and all that goes into the portfolio. This is the formative assessment. If we are giving some scores that will document whether the student is progressing in a particular competency. Next, please. Then, together with the portfolio that has been developed by the student during the formative period of learning, during the final university exam. In the university exam, mostly the time that is available for judgment about pass-fail decisions is very limited, and not enough sampling is there. So we want external examiner to be convinced that the students have gone through the learning experiences and they demonstrate learning progression in the competency progression, and then the student has to defend the portfolio in the form of viva, and this is part of the summative assessment together with some assessment of key learning that is being tested at the university level. Next, please. So this is just to tell about the difference between formative and summative assessment. Next, please. So formative assessment is for learning, and summative assessment is to check whether the specified level of competency has been achieved and the person is job ready. Next, please. So the logbook of the future will be different, and it has to document the evidence that the student has acquired the benchmarked competency level during the entire course. Next, please. I was already telling you about the program evaluation as a new competency that the faculty must acquire. And for that, as a teacher, as a professional, we need to plan our activities and then do it or implement it, and then do research to study the results, how effective they were in delivering the knowledge and skills of the students. So through the cycle, by conducting periodic program evaluation of our courses, we can then initiate corrective measures and improve the quality of the training and the learning experiences that the students are acquiring. So that is possible only through program evaluation. Faculty should have the skill for program evaluation. Next, please. So, is the CBME curriculum? It's a new curriculum implemented in the institution, producing the competent Indian medical graduates. So we have to, the program evaluate, we as teacher or head of department or the curriculum committee members, they need to periodically do program evaluation so that we are convinced we are going in the right direction. Otherwise, this is similar to the remedial measures that the student has to undergo. The curriculum committee members and the teachers need to sit together and think of remedial measures if things are not working, and the targeted curriculum or the competency or the program within the institution is not working or delivering what it is supposed to deliver. Next, please. So faculty development is key, and a competent faculty will lead to competent Indian medical graduate. Next, please. So this is just to emphasize that faculty development is important. And the faculty development is not just limited to creating awareness. The revised basic course and all is just creating awareness about what is the new curriculum. But we should engage the faculty in developing the other skills also, as an assessor, resource developer, clinical teacher, curriculum planner, curriculum evaluator, student assessor, mentor, and all those new roles. They were already there, but the emphasis has to be increased, and the faculty development has to take place. And through faculty development, we will be able and successful in ensuring competent Indian medical graduate. Next, please. So this is from an article, Faculty Development, Teacher Training and Teacher Accreditation, 20 years from now. That was published in 2020, and we have reached the 2020, 20 years from the time of publication. So even at that time, this paper mentioned about the various levels of faculty and the faculty development programs that are available, and all faculty must go through in a medical institution. Next, please. So at the basic level, orientation is what we are familiar with. We are creating orientation about the new CBME paradigm, and then basic instruction skills, which are there unmarked. Next, please. So all these skills that are listed, when faculty development program is conducted in all these levels, activating the learning, preparing audiovisual aids, preparing for OSCE stations, writing test items, evaluation of clinical performance. Each of these skills require more in-depth faculty development program. Just 3 days, 2 days, and all is not enough. So I would encourage all institutions and MEUs of the medical colleges to conduct separate faculty development program for each of these skills that the teacher in the new competency-based paradigm is supposed to acquire. Without the teacher becoming competent, how can we create competent students? So to become competent, we have to be proficient in all the instructional and assessment skills that the new competency-based curriculum expects. Next, please. And the highest level that that model shows is we also need some, not all faculty, but some faculty should acquire higher degrees for the theories about education, curriculum design, educational research and framework, and change management, because they will know what's the problem. They will be able to diagnose, just like the doctor is able to diagnose what's the problem with the patient. Similarly, educators and educational leaders, using their knowledge of the theory and the frameworks about uh, various problems in health education, they could be able to identify the findings of the program evaluation, why certain programs are working, why they are not working, and then they will be able to provide remedial measures, and they will be able to change the current system. Next, please. So the CBM implementation, the purpose of faculty development programs, the various programs that we are undergoing at the moment. Currently, many of the faculty are not aware about the purpose of these various programs. So to make all medical professionals become medical teachers, it is now mandatory that all medical doctors or teachers must undergo orientation program and then specific instructional skills. Next, please. And then we want to create them to become more proficient teachers, which are CBME specific instructional skills, because the CBME paradigm is new for the teachers. And so we have to take a larger proportion of the teachers to undergo specific skills of instructional skills related to competency-based medical education. And then the training of trainers, most of the faculty in the medical education units should undergo more or higher level of competencies that are required of them to become trainers, and then a few to become education specialists and leaders. So this is the whole spectrum of faculty development needs in an institution. Next, please. So at the micro level, at the meso level, that is coordinating curriculum committee members, and then at the macro leadership level, we have different courses. Next, please. So we are familiar with these courses, and we have, next please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we are familiar, and then slide is just to explain why we are having the various faculty development programs. And by attending a particular faculty development program, what is the purpose? And to reach up to the leadership and change management level, we have to seek specific programs like the longitudinal programs like ACME and FAMA Fellowship. Next, please. To summarize, CBME curriculum is a new paradigm. It's new for the teachers, students, and administrator. The teachers need new competencies, and so we need to have specific faculty development programs addressing each of these competencies. And faculty development is the key. And different levels of faculty need different types of faculty capacity building. And of course, once the faculty has gained some overview, they could purposively on their own or by attending specific faculty development capacity building program specialize in some of these areas. So that brings to an end this brief overview of my talk in this webinar. Thank you.
take oral questions, sir, before we take some oral questions from the participants, we can check the chat box, sir. There are a few questions in the chat box.
Sorry, Zaya, it's all from my mobile.
No, I'll read out the questions, sir.
Yeah,
I'll read out the
please.
questions.
Yeah, please.
Dr. Manisha has asked the definition for heterogogy.
Okay. If it becomes very easy to understand if we think of already qualified specialist. Say an already qualified specialist, for them to learn, they know what they need to learn or improve, the area that they need to improve. So they are not at the level of UG level or the PG level. They are already qualified people. They are interacting with patients, or you are, for example, a teacher. So you are already qualified as a teacher, but then you do a reflection on a course that you conducted. You find out what you did well, what you could not do. So you are identifying the gap in your capacity. Once the learner identifies the gap in their current capacity, then you yourself decide which course to choose. So like that, heterogogy is beyond adult learning. It's self-determined. It's not just self-directed, but self-determined learning. It's out of the need for excellence in the profession that you are already in.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
So we invite some oral questions from the participants. If there are any oral questions, please, you can raise it or you can post it in the chat box also. There is a question from Feroz, sir. When Dr. Feroz has posted a question, he has just wanted to know if the portfolio reflective assignments are going to be assessed. And if yes, are they planning on rubric for the same?
Yeah, good questions. All these are matters that are to be decided. I have been given to understand that a special module on assessment is already there, and there will be a specific faculty development also on these issues that will be initiated by Medical Council of India. What I have mentioned is what is desirable. And as you mentioned, rubrics are needed that will guide the assessment of the reflective writing, assessment of the portfolio. They are specific skills, and there is need for faculty development for those areas as well. They are going to come in future.
So another question from Dr. Ram Shankar. Some students join MBBS wishing to become a neurosurgeon or an ophthalmologist. How do you make these students learn other competencies?
Yeah, we have to, our role as a teacher is as a mentor. So we don't depress them by saying useless, you can't decide now. Use that, leverage it. They want to be a neurosurgeon or whatever they want to be. Use that as a motivator to learn the basic science or whatever subject you are teaching. You have to make the link for becoming a neurosurgeon. What basic science knowledge should be there? And so that is when they are in basic science, they need to have a good foundation of basic science or paramedical phase or whatever level. So unless they pass MBBS and they clear the NEET, and now there will be entrance exam. All these exams will be testing knowledge about everything. So it is okay. Let them have aim for whatever higher thing that they have in mind, because maybe they saw some role model in that field, and that's why they are motivated. So motivation is important in learning for the learner, and so teacher needs to use that. I see a hand by Nirmala.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I'm your student from PSG,
Yeah,
currently speaking from Bahrain.
Oh.
Sir, posting the students in the clinical area is a great challenge during the COVID time. So, what do you suggest as a best way to foster the clinical learning? Because we can't pass a student to the next level without having a clinical posting. So this is really a great challenge that we are facing at this point of time. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Nirmala, this challenge is being faced by most clinical teachers. But we need to keep in mind that competency that you are aiming for uh, has to be built on knowledge base, or they could be uh, exposed to simulated situations. So it's an experiential learning thing. So experience can be through simulations. It need not be always real life patient. Just like we are training the pilots to fly a plane, they are not given a plane directly. So imagine currently, because of the COVID, suddenly a new trainee pilot you can't put on a plane. So they are first acquiring the skill on a simulator. So that is very much there in your hands, and there is no COVID interfering with the student learning in a simulation lab. So I think that should be thought of. And once the COVID goes away, we are fortunate to know that by 50% of the population becoming infective, the herd immunity level will be reached. And so soon the COVID outbreak will peak, and then we will be able to resume normal clinical activities and our normal teaching. So till then, use the time that is available for simulated learning.
Thank you, sir.
Babu also, so Vinod Babu also has the same query. And there is a question from Dr. Shweyogappa. He wants to know the difference between logbook and portfolio.
Yeah, the current understanding of logbook is simply you're writing what was the experiment done, or what was the posting, what did you see the patient. Those learning experience only is mentioned, but it becomes a portfolio when that learning experience is assessed by either the peers or self-assessed, or some and the scoring is there, or the feedback is there, the remarks are written on the performance by the teacher. Then the documentation of that, all that becomes a portfolio. So simple listing is a logbook, but documentation of evidence of progression in competency becomes a portfolio.
That's all. I think you have answered all the questions. There are no more questions in the chat box. If any of the participants wants to ask pose any oral question, they can pose.
Sir, good afternoon, Dr. Somesh from PSG, sir.
Yeah, hi.
How are you, sir?
Where are you now?
I'm in PSG, sir, in the department
Okay.
as associate professor.
Okay.
How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, ask your question.
Yeah, my question is, I need to see some portfolio models that is followed specific to different departments if it is already followed, sir. Because no, I'm hearing about portfolio management for the last 2 to 3 years. Even when I went to JIPMER for all the revised basic course workshop, the concept of portfolio was already discussed. But till now, in my personal experience, I've never seen any portfolio managed by any faculty. So it will be nice if I come across some.
Yeah, it's a new experience for everybody.
Okay.
If we keep in mind the purpose of the portfolio, then you can design your own. For example, I would indicate that for a particular department, if you see the competency document for your department,
Yes,
there
sir.
are different competencies that are listed at shows how performs and all those
Yeah.
things. Those
Yeah.
things you focus on, and then in your time schedule have learning experience or practicals for that, test the
Okay.
students, enter the marks of that, and a kind of an index sheet or a summary sheet in which the score is mentioned. The first time you do, say, since you are a microbiology person,
Yes.
if you expect the student to be able to do gram staining, whether the gram staining was done, whether all the steps were performed
Follow.
well, what are the areas that needs improvement, and then you give a second chance. So at that time, whatever remarks are there, they get entered into the portfolio, and at the time of exam, this new portfolio will be seen by the external exam, who will know that this person has done the experiment sufficient number of times and reached the level of perfection. So performance at the time of university exam is not by fluke, but through deliberate practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I think now it's time for us to conclude, sir. You have
Okay.
answered almost all the questions. So it was a very well-planned session, sir. You started very well by introducing the new paradigm of education with reference to the current scenario, that is the CBME paradigm. That was really wonderful. It was really an eye-opening thing. And you listed the challenges from the part of teacher as well as from the part of the students, that is with regard to the curriculum transaction, students' learning method, and the assessment methods. It was very clear that implementing CBME requires unique TL teaching learning methods and assessment methods, as well as the learning experience that needs to be taken into consideration. Then, of course, you also discussed about the need for a hybrid model to transact the CBME curriculum. And you went on to explain the role of the teachers, what are the new roles they are expected to play. All those things were well explained. And you also explained the role of pedagogy, andragogy, and the pedagogy in CBME. So it is not that one particular education principle applies, so it needs to be an eclectic approach for implementing CBME. That was really well explained, sir. And you also went on to explain the growth curve of the Dreyfus model to check whether we are achieving the stated levels of competencies. So that was wonderful. And you also made us to think that it is time for us to move forward from student-centered approach to teacher-centered approach. That message was very clear. So overall, it was a lucid presentation covering all the important aspects of CBME and its implementation methods. So the take-home message was very clear. You said that the teachers should prepare themselves to take up the new roles for effective implementation of CBME. That, of course, that every one of us have to agree to that. We should definitely take up the challenging roles in the future so that the CBME can be implemented effectively to achieve the stated goals. That is to produce competent Indian medical graduate. So, and finally, you said that capacity building is the key for this. So that was really wonderful, sir. So thank you for joining us, and on behalf of JIPMER, I thank you for your wonderful presentation, for joining us. And on behalf of the participants also, I convey my wishes to you and thanks. I thank all the participants and the resource faculty for joining us today. And we look forward for more collaboration in the future, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.